Today we're going to talk about section 1.1, points, lines, and planes. I have three essential questions for you. What are points, lines, segments, rays, and planes? How do you name them? And how do you draw intersections? By the time we're done with this lesson, you'll be able to answer all three of those questions. Okay, so before we get started on the notes here, we're going to go to the very last page. We're going to do some vocabulary. Because before we can talk about these things, you have to be familiar with what they actually are. Okay, so let's talk first about a point. Hopefully you all know what a point looks like. It's basically a dot. So a point has no dimensions, meaning there's no length or width or height. And like I said, it's represented by a dot. Like the point of your pencil. An example of this might be a dot, usually with a letter next to it. It's a capital letter. And I would name this point A. So usually when we write a point, we just write the letter, the capital letter that represents that point. Or you could call it point A. It's important, though, that when we write these names, we write them appropriately. For example, my name is Mrs. Frisk, and if you called me Mr. Michael, that would be wrong, right? So if this is point A, and you didn't name it point A by using a capital A, that would be the wrong name. Okay, next we're going to talk about lines. So lines actually have one dimension. That basically means that they just have like a length. They don't have a width. They don't have a height. Okay, they just have a length. Let's see, I'm going to use bullet points because I got a lot here. Through any 2 points, there's exactly one line. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I were to put 2 points, how about we use point A again? We'll revisit our friend, point A. And point B. Well, and how many different ways can I draw one line that goes through both of these points? There's really, truly only one way. There's no other way to draw a line through those 2 points. So really, any 2 points define a line. And the way that we name these guys, they're named using any 2 points on the line. So for example, for this, I would name this line AB. And the way that I do that is I do line, a little line over AB. Capital letters, because those are points. The other way that you could do this, or using just the lowercase letter that's assigned to that line. So I'll just put or a lowercase letter. So sometimes you will just see a line out in space with no points. Nobody's like actually labeled any points on them. And maybe it'll just have like a little lowercase letter next to it. I don't know if that looks lowercase. Let me try and really make it look lowercase. How about making it like that? I don't know. That's lowercase though. Okay, so then we could just say over here, this one we would name line M. You guys will get used to my writing. It's pretty terrible. All right, the next one, a plane. So a plane has 2 dimensions now. Again, I'll use bullets because we got quite a bit here. 2 dimensions. So this means it has like length and width. Think of a plane like a piece of paper. But it's a piece of paper whose length and width go on forever. Never, ever, ever ending. Oh, and I should say that about a line too. A line goes on for in each direction forever and ever and ever. So the length of this is infinite. Okay, the plane, like a piece of paper, but goes on, its length and its width go on forever. They're infinite. Now, we can define a plane using 3 points. So, through any 3 points, not on the same line though, because if I just had 3 points on the same line, that's just one dimension, that's just length. So through any 3 points not on the same line, there is exactly one plane. And a plane is named using 3 points not on the same line. Or, oh wait, there's another time. I forgot about that. Or sometimes they're just assigned an uppercase letter. Or uppercase letter. Okay, so a plane, we usually use a thing called a parallelogram. It's like a rectangle turned on its, or maybe like kind of tipped over a little bit. So it doesn't necessarily have 90-degree angles. So it usually looks something like this. So if I had 3 points in here, how about M, N, and how about, just for fun, let's put an S in there. Okay, so those are 3 points. Okay, so I can name this plane ABC. Or sorry, not plane ABC, plane MNS. Why did I say ABC? I have no idea. However, sometimes, so those were all 3 points, other times you might see a plane, again, kind of like a parallelogram, with no point at all. Like you won't see any points in there. You know that there's a bunch of points in there. How about I'll name this one T? It just has this with no dot next to it. And that's actually the name. So this one is going to be plane T. Okay, so those are a couple of ways of naming planes. Okay, next we have a segment. A segment is similar to a line, but it doesn't go on and on and on. It's just like a portion of a line. So this consists, I'm going to let that phone ring because it's 5 o'clock right now, and I don't think anybody should be calling me. So it consists of 2 endpoints. And what I mean by that is you would have 2 endpoints. What should we use? How about D and E? So this right here is a segment. Notice it doesn't go on and on in both directions forever. Okay, it consists of 2 endpoints and all points in between. So there are a bunch of points in here between D and E. And the way that we name it is just using those 2 endpoints. And a little segment. So this time I'm just going to draw a segment. Notice I'm not putting the arrows on the end, just the segment DE. Okay, next we're going to talk about array. So array only has 1 endpoint. It's kind of like half of a line if you want to think of it that way. So it consists of 1 endpoint. So for example, let's draw a ray. How about going this direction? How about, let's make this one RV. Okay, so this one, you name a ray basically using the endpoint first and then the one other letter on the ray, or any other letter on the ray. So this one here I would call, and you always put a little ray on top, I would call this ray RV because we put the endpoint first. Okay, so let me write that down. So named with endpoint first. And one other letter on the ray. I'll do one more. How about that? Let's do one going this way now. So how about I'll make this a C and a D. So you always name it with the endpoint first and then some other letter. And maybe you have multiple letters on here. Here's an F. So I could name this CF, I could name this CD. Either one of those work. Now for example, you guys go to a co-ed school, right? Co means like together. So co-ed is basically boys and girls get to go to school together, okay? So cooperate, right? That starts with a co, means that you work together, okay? So collinear basically means that there are points that lie on the same line. So let's just draw a line over here. How about we'll put points P, Q, and R. So points P, Q, and R are collinear. There's not really a way to name this. There's no name. But I can just say right here in a little statement, P, Q, R are collinear. That's how you would explain that. This is a Q. I know it doesn't look like it. And then lastly, we'll talk about opposite rays. So two rays that share an endpoint and form a line. So if I gave you a line, I'll just put A, B, and C on here. Right here you have two opposite rays, and I'll show you what they are in a second. These are two rays that share an endpoint. And form a line. Do I like that necessarily? Yes, and form a line. So they go in opposite directions, right? That's why they're called opposite. So one ray that we have here is ray BC. And the other ray that we have is ray BA. Notice they share the same endpoint B. Okay, so I'll say that ray BC and ray BA. Those are our two opposite rays. Even though it looks like a line, and you could also name a line here. You could name this line AB, you can name this line AC, line BC, or any combination like that. All right, moving back to the front page now. If you guys could get a highlighter or some kind of colored pencil or something like that, because we're going to do a little bit of highlighting. So first of all, we'll talk about intersect. So two or more geometric figures intersect if they have one or more points in common. The intersection of the figures is the set of points that the figures have in common. So for example, the intersection of two different lines is a point. Here we have lines M and N intersecting at point A. The intersection of two different planes is a line. Oh, I should highlight these, sorry. So here you have two different planes. They haven't been named. Maybe I'll name them. How about we call this one plane S and plane R? Well, plane S and plane R, they intersect at line Q. I'm going to highlight that. So notice like this, they just intersected at one point. But here, remember these planes go on forever in all directions. So this line also goes forever in its directions. So an intersection is the set of points that the figures have in common. Okay. Naming points, lines, and planes. There should be commas there. I'm not sure why there aren't. Sorry. So let's do an example where we actually name or do some naming. And we're going to use what we just talked about when we name, right? We're going to name things properly, right? You're going to call me by my name. I'm going to call you by your name. And you're going to call all these little geometric figures by their names. So we'll give two other names for line DE. Notice that's a line. That's not a segment. It's a line DE. So let's identify line DE. Here it is. Here's DE. Why don't should I highlight that? Yeah, let's go ahead and highlight that. So here's line DE. Now there are two other ways. Actually, there's several other ways that we could name this. But one other way that we can name it is by choosing other points that are on this line. So I could call this line AE. I could call this line DA. I could call this line AD. Okay, so that's one thing. So how about I'll just choose one of those. So I'll put the little line, and then how about DA instead of DE? But the other way, you see this little lowercase r there? I can use that also to name this line. So I could also say or line R. That's pretty simple. Okay, so that's for line DE. Oh, maybe I'll color code this. This is fun. Okay, now plane C. Let's see if I have another color here. That one's too dark. Give me 1 second. How about pink? Now notice the C down here. It's on this plane right here. Okay, so plane C. Well, we can name a plane. Back to our notes here. You can name it using 3 points not on the same line. Or the uppercase letter. Well, they've already named it using the uppercase letter. So I think I need 3 points that are not on the same line. See how D, A, and E, they're all on the same line. So I can't call this plane DAE. But I could call this plane, how about DAF? Or plane, how about DEF? Or AEF, right? Any 3 points that are in this plane, but just not on the same line. Because if you just name 3 points, that's just going to give you a line. Oh, that's also part of A. Why did I write a B there? This is why we use pencil, because I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. So hopefully you're using pencil. All right, so part B. Let's name 3 points that are collinear. Let's start with that. Name 3 points that are collinear, meaning points that are on the same line, like PQR. Well, hopefully by now that's pretty obvious to you. There are 3 points on this line. R is not a point. Notice there's no dot next to R. The only 3 points right here are D, A, E. Notice there's another line here, A, B, but there's not a third point on there. So I can't name 3 points there, okay? Now this is also line S, right? But that's not a point. That's just the name of the line because it's the lowercase letter. Okay, so name 3 points that are collinear. I think it's just going to be D, A, and E. I don't think I have any other options for this. And then name 4 points that are coplanar. So any 4 points in the same plane. Now truly, this can get a little bit complicated because any 4 points could be in the same plane as long as they're not collinear. So really, I mean, what I'm seeing here is probably D, A, E, F are your best bet because they all appear to be on this like same piece of paper, the same plane. But truly, you could take any 4 points that are not on the same line, and those are going to be coplanar. So like B is way up here. I don't know if you noticed this, but B is in this 3rd dimension. Okay, it's above the plane. But it could be in its own plane with B, F, E, and A. So if you could imagine drawing some other plane that like encompasses those. So truly you could make any answer here. As long as they're not 4 points on the same. And as long as they're points, I watch people all the time use R and S, those little lowercase letters, as points, and those are not points. I'll just go ahead and use the ones that are in the plane on this piece of paper. So D, A, E, and because we have F, it's okay. Okay, we can say that they are coplanar because we have this F, or not just 3 points on one line. I guess let me go ahead and do this one too because it was just fun. How about F, B, A, E? Okay, those are those answers. Moving right along. Now we're going to name segments, rays, and opposite rays. So, give another name for segment TR. Well, segment TR also has, notice, I know you don't see it, but remember if 2 lines intersect, they form a point, right? So we've also got P on there. So we could say segment PR. We could say segment RT, right? That's a little bit different than TR. We can say segment PT. So any of those will work. You have to have the little segment on top. How about I'll do RP? Or how about, let me do a couple of these. I'll put an or, just so that you have different ideas. Oops. We could do RT. Or what else did I say? How about PT? Segment PT. Lots of different options here. So unfortunately, when I'm grading your papers, it's going to be kind of a pain because I have to think about all the different combinations that you guys can give me, and you guys get pretty creative, so that's cool. All right, B, we're going to name all rays with endpoint P. So P has several rays here, right, that have this as an endpoint. PR is one. So I'll say ray PR. What's another one? How about ray PQ? P always has to come first, though, because it's the endpoint. Ray PT. Seeing the difference here is this has a ray over it. That doesn't. That's a segment. Okay, and then ray PS. Which of these rays are opposite rays? So which of them actually forms a line, I guess is the question, right? So PR, ray PR, and ray PT, those form a line. So we can say that ray PR and ray PT, opposite rays. And the other ones would be ray PQ and ray PS. I guess actually I could have probably just highlighted them in coordinating colors, but good enough. All right, example 3, sketching intersections of lines and planes. Okay, so I think I'm going to use some colored pens. Oh, I won't use colored pencils yet. I think we'll be okay. So sketch two intersecting lines A and B that lie in plane W. So I'm going to start by drawing actually a plane. And then I'm going to do two intersecting lines. Oh, and this is plane W. So I'll put a capital W. It's not a point. We don't have 3 points naming this plane. We just have the actual capital W. Then I'm going to sketch two intersecting lines. Lines go on in both directions forever, so I'll put arrows at the ends. And I don't have any points for these either. These are lowercase letters, so I'll just put like A out here and B out here, and that means that this is line A and that's line B. And they intersect in a point, right? Those two lines, but these lines actually lie in the plane, so they actually intersected every single point on the lines with the plane, which is kind of cool. So line A intersects with every single point on line A with that plane. And same with B, it intersects with every single point on line B with the plane. All right, next one, we're going to sketch line D that intersects plane D in only one point and label the point A. Okay, so for B, we'll do plane D first. So again, just a capital D. Now there's a line that intersects this plane, so it means that it like pops out. It's very similar looking to this. Oops, sorry, you can't see that. Right? This line S here intersected at point A. Okay, and that's basically three-dimensional. Notice this dotted line here. That means it goes behind and you can't really see it. Okay, so let's do some kind of a line like that where I have some dots and then it comes out the other side. Right, so that kind of makes it look three-dimensional. Now this is line D, so I'll label it D, little lowercase d, it's not a point. But the point of intersection of the plane and the line, there's only one point of intersection here between a plane and a line, and that one point of intersection is A. Imagine like this line D is like popping out at you. Okay, it's popping up. But it's hard to do that because this paper is two-dimensional. Okay, last one. Sketch a plane X that contains line PQ and a point B not on line PQ. Okay, so we're going to have a plane, call it capital X. Again, that's not a point. It contains some line PQ. So here's my line, and because it was named with 2 points, I'll put those points on there. And it also contains a point that's not on this line, point B. So I'll put that B out there somewhere. Now, if you're getting confused about any of this, you should write yourself little questions here and then bring them to class and I can answer them. All right, last thing we're going to do today on this video is we are going to sketch two planes. Let's see, I'm going to use colored pencils here because I think it looks better when we do that. So I think, why not orange and green? And I've done a little diagram here for you. And you can believe that this will be on tests. So you will see this time and again because I think that this is a good skill to have. So what they have here for us is they have some steps. So the first step that we're going to do, step 1, is to just basically you're going to draw this rectangle out here. Okay, so this is step 1. So I'm just going to draw myself a rectangle. It might be nice to have a ruler too, so it looks kind of neat. I'm trying to make it as neat as I can. There we go. All right, so step 1, we made a rectangle. Now step 2, from there, you're going to draw this parallelogram that's going to come out like at you. So really all you have to do is draw. You've already got the top of that, so we're just going to draw 2 parallel lines to the best of your ability. Okay, so that's step 2. Now from here, what I do is I go back. Okay, so I know that they have step 3 doing this, but really what we should do now is we should go back here and we should draw the other part of our parallelogram, and then the other half of this top rectangle should come down here. So at this point now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use, because this is going to be behind this rectangle right here, so I'm going to use dotted lines. Okay, so this is like one flat surface, right? This is a plane here. And now let's finish our top plane here. Again, I'm going to use dotted lines because we can't see it. This is kind of popping out at us. And then I'm going to finish this the rest of this rectangle down here. So I'll use my ruler for that as well. And some of you are probably better artists than I am, so you might be able to do this even better. And then I'm going to use color because I really like how the color ends up looking. So 2 planes, R and S. And then they intersect in line AB. So that's step 3, is to make sure that you end up with some line here. And I'm going to extend that line just a little bit out so it's really obvious. And then you can put points A and B wherever you feel like. So here's maybe A and B. And now I'm going to use some colors. So how about the one that's coming out at me? Okay, I'm going to use orange for that. So that is what, plane S? So it's important that, you think about what you can see and what you can't see. So back here, I can't see this dotted area, so I'm not going to color that in. And you can use highlighters too. Okay. And then the rest of this will be colored green, right? Because this part, again, is behind plane R. Yeah. And I'll do the same on the bottom here because this is also part of plane R. Let's see, I'm not doing a very good job with my coloring, but that's not really the point here. So 2 planes intersecting in line AB. We will do these tomorrow in class.